Welcome back, Rebel fans. You're listening to another episode of the Rebel Talk presented by the Rebel Walk. I'm Cam Wicker, and as always, I'm here with
Zach Mareth.
and we haven't been with you guys for a little while, at least to do a recap of what's going on. Last time we had Josh Pfeiffer on the show, we didn't get to really talk Ole Miss sports, so we're just kind of recapping some of the things that's happened so far. Got some guys coming up that we're going to interview on the show soon. You'll see that down the road soon and throughout the summer with just nothing much going on. We'll have guys on the show to talk with you guys, but today we're just going to talk a little bit of Ole Miss sports, Ole Miss baseball. Kind of got hot a little bit lately, just up and down. Seems like kind of late down the road. Southern Miss on this past Tuesday yesterday, and then Texas A&M, they beat Texas A&M this past weekend. You want to start off, Southern Miss game wasn't really the biggest things that Ole Miss fans hoped for last night.
Yeah, not at all, Cam. I'm just bothered looking on Twitter and seeing how happy Southern Miss fans are. I'm sure many of us can agree. But it was a tough game, Ole Miss takes an early 4-0 lead, and that offense is hot. It's kind of how we saw against Friday and Saturday against A&M. And then the Sunday version of that Ole Miss offense took over essentially for the rest of the game. Luke Hill was the only player with 2 hits, and Ole Miss had 5 hits total. Would strike out 12 times, just looking at the stat sheet. Just terrible numbers, especially for a team like Southern Miss, who they're good, but again, they're not great. And we beat them earlier in the season. So that one stings. It's frustrating, but you do have to give Ole Miss the credit for beating Texas A&M 2 games out of that 3-game set. But again, Sunday I was hoping for a little more of a fight. They were in there for a minute. I think it was maybe the 5th inning, Groff double. It was the perfect time to really get that game close to where it needed to be. And again, the offense didn't come through. Nothing happened. And then pitching fell apart. And that's just kind of been the story of this year, Cam. But again, they've shown flashes of potential. So I guess we'll see what happens this weekend against LSU.
Absolutely. That Southern Miss game, like you said, just a little disappointing. They had a 4-0 lead early. Andrew Fisher gets you kicked off with a bomb in the first inning.
Yeah.
It seems like Luke Hill's been having a great time at the plate these past couple of weeks. It seems like he's really turned it around when people just really hadn't noticed. I think last weekend I noticed that he was batting .345 in SEC play. I think that was on like Friday or Saturday when I checked that. So if Luke Hill can continue this in the leadoff spot, Ole Miss is in a good spot. But like you said, the bats struggled late in that game against Southern Miss. They're going to have to be better against LSU if they want to win at least 2 of those games, which if you win 2 of those games, you're sitting comfortably, probably hopefully you'll get a NCAA tournament spot if you make some noise in the SEC tourney. But even if you win 1, you're probably still in the SEC tourney, no doubt. I think the only way you're not is if Missouri sweeps this weekend, right? So,
yeah.
And then you get swept too. So it's a lot of things you have to do to not get in the SEC tourney. But if you're Ole Miss, you're just kind of hoping that these 2 losses in a row just don't fall into play coming this weekend. And like you said, LSU coming up this weekend, this is a team that is struggling as of late in the season, early in the season. Not the team that they were a year ago, lost a lot of guys, but also still really good pitching rotation for this team. I believe they're top in one of the top teams in the SEC, top 5 in ERA in the SEC. 2 really elite starters on Friday and Saturday games. The game which would be Thursday and Friday against Ole Miss. Luke Holman and Gage Jump. Luke Holman has 100+ strikeouts already this year, only 30 walks. Pretty good ratio for him. And then 74 strikeouts, 17 walks for Gage Jump. So both those guys are going to be elite on the games 1 and games 2. Ole Miss is going to have to battle with those guys.
You said it, Cam. They're going to have to. And it's going to be, what type of offense are we getting? Are we getting the Ole Miss offense who's working counts, who's being aggressive up there, who's kind of getting their pitch, or the Ole Miss offense who's being passive? They're not getting out, not taking advantage of those pitches early in the count that they like, and the strikeouts start tallying up. Who are we going to get? And that seems to be the story of this weekend, especially against an LSU offense that is not nearly as impressive as they have been in the past.
Absolutely. We're going to go back a little bit to Texas A&M weekend this past weekend.
Let's do it.
Started off great. I mean, it seems like Ole Miss coming into that series, a lot of people would expect Ole Miss to get swept or even just drop 2 games and maybe win a little scratcher like they do most of the time. It seems like the trend for Ole Miss against the really good teams was either play them really close, get blown out in one, and then like maybe lose a heartbreaker in the other.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like the only team they played close all weekend, that was a top team, was Arkansas. But even this past week against A&M, even on the Sunday game, it just, I mean, like you said, it was close a little bit, but it just got a little far out of their reach late in the game. They just couldn't string together hits in that Sunday game. But Friday and Saturday, this is like a completely different Ole Miss batting lineup. I mean, Reagan Burford was out there looking great. Luke Hill looked great all weekend. Jackson Ross was clutch all weekend. Eli Birch looked good this weekend.
Yeah.
So I mean, guys that usually hadn't stepped up in the batting lineup for Ole Miss stepped up this weekend, got them 2 huge wins, and I think that is really what kind of turned this around to make you think Ole Miss can actually make a run for that tournament spot late after the SEC tournament.
Exactly, Cam. And, I'm still trying to figure it out. Is that the Ole Miss team like we know? We saw it against South Carolina. It seemed like the bats were hot again, or is that just a fluke? And then we see Sunday, we see Tuesday night. So now my brain is still trying to figure out what the hell's going on with the offense. Is the pitching good enough? All these different questions that seemingly are never getting answered. But I thought Wes Mendez did a really nice job. Same with Connor Spencer. That Friday night game was super close, 4-3 win. That was awesome. Like, those are the wins that give me the belief that this team can maybe knock some people out in the NCAA tournament. And then Saturday, we were texting before. It's Doyle Day. That there's no better day to be an Ole Miss fan, to have that confidence with this Ole Miss baseball team. And he goes 6, allows a run, strikes out 7. Just a dog out there. And Josh Mallett's cleaned him up. Came out there right after him, got the job done. And the offense was electric. And then Sunday, again, nothing.
Absolutely.
Nothing, dude. So we'll see. I'm excited to see what happens in Baton Rouge in the SEC tournament, hoping that we make it, and hopefully, again, the NCAA.
Yeah, like you said, the starting rotation for Ole Miss this past weekend was great. I think they went like 17 combined innings, only like 4 allowed earned runs. Mason Nichols looked good on Sunday, and if they can do that again this weekend, they have a good shot at getting 2 against LSU. Liam Doyle, whoever Ole Miss has in the pitching rotation next year, whether Hunter Elliott and Xavier Rivas decide to come back, Liam Doyle decides to come back, Riley Maddox, whoever it is, Liam Doyle is probably going to be one of the guys in the SEC next year as long as he can continue this. He has the stuff. Maybe the velo hops up maybe just a little bit more if he can get it to.
Yeah.
But this is a guy who, when it's working, it's really unhittable at times. And Liam Doyle has the mentality where he can be a guy. He can be the Friday night guy. And I like to see that next year for Ole Miss if they can have him back. But really just like you said, the bullpen guys this weekend, Connor Spencer, Wes Mendez looked great. And Josh Mallett's has been getting beat up recently in his outings. Just kind of showed out in that outing. He kind of shut him down. I believe he had the bases loaded at one point and he got out of it. So
that was great, dude.
Josh Mallett's really showed what he can do. I believe Bianco said after the game that this was the Mallett's that they saw a couple years ago in that College World Series run. This is the Mallett's that they hope to have all year. So if you're the Ole Miss pitching staff right now, you just got to keep doing what you're doing, and the bats are going to have to stay hot like they were in those first 2 games against Texas A&M. Looking at the RPI, this is going to be very important for Ole Miss down the stretch. 24th in the RPI. I know it's kind of you hear it in every sport, and especially in basketball and basketball and baseball when it comes to the tournaments. LSU is 34th, so Ole Miss kind of really needs to get 2 this weekend to kind of help their RPI so they don't lose 2 games. Still a quad 1 matchup because it's 1 through 60 away matchup for Ole Miss. So if you get another quad 1 win there, a couple more quad 1 wins there, Ole Miss has 12, which they're tied 3rd most in the SEC behind Kentucky and Tennessee, who are probably 2 of the best teams in the country.
Right.
And I think there's a bunch of teams tied at 12, like State, South Carolina, Alabama, even Georgia, which is Georgia kind of put together as of late down the stretch there too. Man. But yeah, this is an RPI system that's going to help Ole Miss, especially if they can win this weekend, maybe make some noise in the SEC tourney. And I mean, if depending on what they do in the SEC tourney, this is an Ole Miss team that can probably sneak in late like they did a couple years ago in that tournament.
Exactly, Cam. And it's really what it's all about at this point. Get to the tournament because we saw anything can happen. You have Doyle, you got Maddox, and you have Mallett's, and you got some dudes who can hit, So let's try and get hot at the right time like we did 2 years ago and just get in and see what happens.
Absolutely. Yeah. So LSU versus Ole Miss will start tomorrow night. I believe they start at like 6 or 6:30 tomorrow night, and they'll play Friday and Saturday as 2, and that'll be the end of the regular season for the SEC. Ole Miss softball also made the tournament. They are going to the Lafayette Regional in Louisiana. ULL, Baylor, and I think Princeton are involved in that. Ole Miss will play Baylor on Saturday night to kick off there. So the Lady Rebels, keep an eye out for them in the tourney as well. I think that's all we got for you guys for baseball. We're going to come back from a little commercial break, and we'll talk a little football and hoops for both men's and women's Ole Miss. Welcome back, guys, and really just not too much going on in other sports other than baseball. Baseball being the only sport in season, but we still want to keep you guys updated about what's going on. Only real kind of portal hit for Ole Miss was Amorian Walker. He hit the portal maybe last week, 2 weeks ago for Ole Miss. Didn't see much out of him out of the spring, other than he was a taller, lanky guy. I'm not sure what school he went back to. Did he go back to Michigan, or is he hasn't picked anymore? Back to Michigan. So Warren Walker will not be a part of that Ole Miss team come the fall. But one commitment out of the portal, Isaiah Hamilton from Houston. If you want to go ahead and talk about him, and I'll get some highlights put up on him, Zach.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. The immediate vibes I get are just Deshaun Gaddy, and not even in terms of playing style, just the energy. He's constantly celebrating. It looks like he has a really good kind of flow with his teammates. He looks like a guy who's going to bring the juice every single game. But also a guy who can get it done on the field a little more than Gaddy did. And that's not a shot. Statistically, Hamilton was just a beast last year. 4 interceptions in 2023, 5 in 2022. He records a tackle in every single game last season. And he's 6'1", which is something I've come to really enjoy, Cam, is like the length that Pete Golding is targeted at corner. And I think he can slide in on the other side of Trey Amos, who's also 6'1". Super lengthy, super physical. And again, Brian Brown, we got Brown back to coach these DBs up. It's going to be his first year at Ole Miss. So I'm excited, man. I think he's going to get a lot of takeaways, and he should fit in perfectly, especially after losing Walker to the portal.
Absolutely. Like you said, this is a guy that's probably going to come in, play right away, impact this defense right away for Ole Miss. 3 years at Texas Southern, those are the highlights you're seeing there on the screen. He makes tackles. He's a very aggressive player. He's not scared of contact at all. Like you said, I think you'll see him alongside Trey Amos and Chris Graves there in the corner positions. This is an Ole Miss team that usually runs around 5 DBs in that secondary. And, I mean, like you see on the tape that we've showed from him, he's just really aggressive, and I think he has a chance to start pretty early here for this Ole Miss defense. This is a guy who's going to make an impact right away for Ole Miss, and it's going to be exciting to see him in the fall for sure.
100%, Cam. Who we got next?
We got Khalil Jacobs. He visited for Ole Miss yesterday, I believe. So linebacker out of South Alabama. Really big guy, kind of reminds me of Perkins a little bit. With that size, comes off the edge. That's probably what Ole Miss will do with them off the edge there. Just 2 years eligibility left for him. Similar to that hard-hitting kind of role, kind of like Isaiah Hamilton, but just a bigger guy, and he'll join an elite linebacker room with Pooh, Kari Coleman, those guys, and just it'll be a good gift for Ole Miss if they can hold on to him for sure.
Exactly. This one, it's a little strange to me, Cam, just because his former head coach is now the defensive coordinator at Alabama. So there were some rumors that he was visiting. Maybe the visit got canceled. Maybe he still has to visit Alabama. But, that's an immediate concern anytime there's a former coach linked there. But again, I don't want to get anyone's hopes up because he did take a visit to Ole Miss. So I think that's a great sign. But again, he would fit perfectly in Golding's defense. Whether, you want to compare him to Coleman, Perkins, or TJ Dudley, he blitzes really efficiently, especially on the blind side. And he just attacks quarterbacks, Cam. Whether it's a quarterback or a running back, he does a great job of containing them. And again, he would fit, like we said, he's just like the perfect piece in that linebacker room.
Absolutely. And you see the clip right there. I mean, that was the last one I showed, that the hit on Chris Pratt right here. It's just really an explosive player off the edge, just a bullet off the edge right there. He does that in a lot of the film I've watched of him. Most of the film, you can't really find like true highlights of the guy. You're going to watch game film of South Alabama's defense. But if you watch him, he's just out there making tackles. I believe he had 56 tackles for this team last year.
Yeah.
56 tackles, 3 sacks, an interception, forced 3 fumbles. So this is a guy who Pete Golding kind of loves. Seems like he added a bunch of hybrid safeties that kind of like the forced fumbles, like Yam Banks, Key Lawrence, those guys. And this would be another guy, Khalil Jacobs, who's just going to run after the football any chance he gets. It's going to be really excited to see him if Ole Miss can bring him in. And like I said, he'll join an elite linebacker room if Ole Miss can go on this guy. I believe he has connections with the defense coordinator at Alabama, right?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So I think that was his coordinator at South Alabama as well. So, but yet to commit. So that's kind of a good sign for Ole Miss there. You're still kind of in the hunt there for Ole Miss. that's all for the kind of transfer portal guys right now. Next up, we'll talk about some of the high school guys, and the biggest one so far, Jerome Miles, committed on April 28th. You want to talk about him, Zach?
Yeah, he's a really, really special player, Cam. There's a little level of concern that he committed right after a visit because I know Lane, he's not the biggest fan of that. They want you to take all your visits and decide Ole Miss, so that way there's no drama later in the recruitment cycle. And the field he's playing on, if you look at, would be Utah. That's probably my biggest concern. He's from Utah. He plays at Corner Canyon High School, the same place Jackson Dart played at. But again, Dart probably won't be at Ole Miss next year if things go as planned. So we'll see what happens. I'm not saying anything negative at this point because he committed. He loves Ole Miss, and there's clearly a connection there with Dart and just that Oxford community. But the player who I thought of when I was looking at this film it's just like a prime Juice Wells from a couple years ago at South Carolina, just making ridiculous catches. He's beating everyone down the field with his speed. Just an overall athlete, Cam. And this kid dominates. I think he runs a 200 in track, and he's just a killer. So I'm excited to see if he becomes a Reb and what he can do with Lane Kiffin's offense.
Absolutely, like you said, he kind of has that connection with Jackson Dart there. That's kind of the reason. Seems like we kind of got able to reel him in. But if you're looking at the film, like Zach said, this is a guy who's going to make aggressive catches. He runs with the football really well. You see right there, he's just making space for his quarterback in the back of the end zone. But I mean, he's going to be a guy who's extremely athletic, extremely good hands, and I think if you're Ole Miss, this is just adding to that receiver history with the university. I mean, you had guys like AJ Brown who would catch and run. You had guys like Elijah Moore who would catch and run. Dontario Drummond who can catch and run. Seems like Lane Kiffin likes those type of guys who he can just dump it off to, screen pass, slant route, and they'll take it to the house. And I mean, who knows who the quarterback will be for Ole Miss in the future? There's a couple of guys that it could be after Jackson Dart, but if they can hold on to these receivers that they're getting and add some more, it'll be pretty impressive to see which quarterback takes that next step with the weapons that they have. Exactly,
and I think what is he? He's 6'3", 200 pounds.
Yeah,
like dude just has the build. He's got the body. This is a guy you want to get to campus.
Absolutely. Next, we got Hayden Bradley, tight end from Buford, Georgia. Recently committed, I believe, on the 30th, maybe. The 27th of April, he committed. Big guy, like I said, Buford High School, one of the top high schools in the country, not just top in Georgia. I believe they had a lot of guys come out of that high school recently. Big guy, 6'4", 220 pounds. You want to talk a little bit more about him, Zach?
Yeah, he flew a little under my radar, Cam, because that Brame kid, there was a lot of hype there. They were playing pickleball with Brame, really juicing up his visit, but it looks like he'll probably end up at Oregon. But I'm not upset with Bradley at all. He's 6'4", 220. He's got a lot of weight to put on, which what that happens for high school tight ends. We saw with Dylan Hipp this year. But clearly, he plays for one of the, like you said, one of the best high school programs in the nation. He had 39 different offers too. So when coaches are evaluating a guy like this and throwing offers at him at the rate that he was receiving them, that's usually a pretty good sign. So I'm excited to see him develop. I think he does a great job blocking, but at the same time, again, he's a fantastic receiving tight end. Just as we've seen Lane Kiffin develop, he developed some incredible tight ends at FAU. We're seeing Prescorn turn into something special here. So I can promise this kid's going to be a very, very talented player in the future.
Absolutely. And with your tight end coach being Joe Cox, I mean, doesn't get much better than that. He's just kind of an offensive guru there. But like you said, smaller guy, going to have to add a little bit more weight. You would like to see those tight ends, especially at that size, get up to around 240, 250 if they can. But like you said, he's a really good blocker from the film I'm watching. Just really strong guy. Seems like he pushes guys out the frame sometimes, and really good hands for his size, and moves really well for his size too. So I think they really like Hayden Bradley and Lane Kiffin and Joe Cox, and I think maybe this is a guy that you're going to plan on holding on to as long as you can.
Absolutely. Great pickup. I want to say Penn State was after him hard. Again, just when you're being targeted by the top programs, you have 39 offers. It's a great thing and a great pickup.
Absolutely. And next up, we got Mason Dunn from Tupelo, Mississippi, DB. Smaller guy, just kind of, I believe, 3-star commit, couple weeks ago. I believe beginning of May. I don't know too much about him, but I know Zach does. You want to talk a little bit more, Zach, about him, Zach?
Yeah. He, really good frame with a lot of potential. He kind of reminds me of John Saunders a little bit. He's 6'4", 180 pounds, a lot of length. I think we'll see him slide into the safety role more than the DB role, but nonetheless, he has experience at both. And I think it's going to continue to be that way. We saw that, with Dejon Anthony a little bit. Like I said, with Saunders, Golding likes to slide these guys all over the field. And being 6'4", I think he's going to do a great job, whether that's in the passing game or the running game. I think that's what stood out to me about his film. He hits really hard and he's quick to realize whether it's a run or a pass. So nothing wrong with this. And again, Tupelo, an hour east of campus, you really like to see those in-state guys stay home and go to Ole Miss.
Absolutely, like you said, you like to see those in-state guys stay here and pick Ole Miss over Mississippi State if you're an Ole Miss fan for sure. That's
Right.
what Lane Kiffin's trying to do: keep those in-state guys while still going to get out-of-state product. Especially with the portal, it seems like he does that a lot more with the portal. Go to get those out-of-state guys. But you definitely want to keep as many in-state guys as you can, build that culture there at Ole Miss. But like you said, hard hitter for a small guy. He's just really fast, and I think that's kind of what he does. Builds up that speed, just lowers the shoulder on a lot of guys. I see a
Yeah.
lot of times in these films, he high points the football really well, which is really good for a DB. He
Yep.
kind of knows where to go get the ball. Seems like he reads the defense really well too, whether making sure it's a run play or a pass play. He kind of jams guys at the line on run plays a lot. And I kind of like that in the film, especially out of a guy who's smaller. You like to see a guy who's smaller jam people at the line, especially knowing that they can gain weight and get even better at that
Exactly.
technique as well. But yeah, like you said, the in-state guys are very important for this Ole Miss team, and I think this is just another guy that in that 2025 class that you can get out of Mississippi.
Right, Cam. Moving forward, it looks like there's going to be some big time players coming to Ole Miss this summer. If you want to get into that for us.
Absolutely, yeah. So just a little notable, some notable guys that we've kind of looked at. 4-star safety Keon Young will be on May 31st. 4-star safety Ladarian Clarity will be on June 21st. 3-star cornerback Major Preston from IMG Academy, June 14th, with Hayden Bradley that day. So that's good to have him there with the commitment. 3-star wide receiver Dejarian Miller from Cardinal Ritter in St. Louis, June 6th. The reason why I kind of mentioned those 3-star guys, just because from the big schools that they come from, you see it from Hayden Bradley, Burford, kind of Kiffin. Kiffin don't really care about the stars as much as some other coaches. Maybe it seems like he goes after the guys who he watches the film and knows they're going to play and kind of wants to meet the guys too. And I think that's what you're seeing when you go get guys from like IMG from Burford in Georgia and Cardinal Ritter in St. Louis. Those are top programs in the country, and I think that's what this Ole Miss team is kind of looking for, just top programs coached by really good coaches throughout the country.
No, that's a great point. And Lane said it in his press conference. They're hiring all these analysts who have, all sorts of college experience, NFL experience, because you have to continue to recruit at the best of your ability in high school and in the transfer portal. So their evaluations are going to be like top of the line at all times moving forward.
Absolutely. I think that's all we got for football for you guys, but we got a little bit of basketball to talk about. Most recent commit for Coach Joe seemed like she went hunting in the portal this offseason. Added another forward in that front court. He's already got a stacked front court next year. Christine Uwala from UCLA, also from San Antonio, Texas. Didn't really have a outstanding stats year last year, but I believe she got freshman all Pac-12 honors one week. So pretty big deal there, especially for a young freshman on a really good UCLA team. And
Yes.
I think for this Ole Miss team, this is another piece like you saw with Star Jacobs that you're either going to see heavily in that starting lineup or just another rotation big off the bench.
Exactly, Cam. She's 6'2". She has the potential to be an elite rim protector. She should fit in perfectly into this Coach Yo style defense, protect the rim, all that stuff. Let's prevent as much scoring as possible. And a lot of potential in her offense as well. We didn't see it a lot last season. She only played 11 minutes per game. But again, she's on a stacked UCLA roster, and I think she's really going to blossom when she joins this team in Oxford with a lot of experience and leadership that she'll be able to learn from in the front court.
Absolutely. Really looking forward to see what that Coach Show team is going to do. Team 50 is going to be very exciting to watch. I wouldn't be surprised if they're ranked inside the top 25 to begin the year again, like they were a year ago, just because the pieces that they've added and the way that they ended the year last year. Moving on to a little bit of men's hoops, and then we'll wrap it up for you guys. But we talked to Chris Beard on Monday on the phone interview. You'll see an article coming out with that soon. Just talking about the 2024 season and just the recruiting cycle. And talking with him, we didn't get to talk about it last time. We did talk about Sean Padula possibly committing to Ole Miss last time we had Dave Eckert on the pod. But then later that day, after we released the podcast, Sean Padula committed to Ole Miss. And talking with Beard, he's just as excited to get this guy as other Ole Miss fans and the rest of the Ole Miss community is. And I think this is a guy who's going to be very ball dominant, a guy that's going to have the ball in his hands most of the time throughout the game, and a guy that has the ability to be the best player on this team next year.
Exactly, Cam. I've seen the Marshall Henderson comparisons, and I love it. He's got swagger. He's got it all, and a lot of experience. He really dominated the ACC. I apologize if everyone can hear my dog barking upstairs. We'll ignore that for now. But again, Padula going to be a starting player from day one, and I am so excited that Ole Miss has a point guard who's going to establish and set up the offense like he can do.
Absolutely. You got tons of scores around him. You went and picked up Dre Davis. You went and picked up Mikael Brown-Jones. You still have Jamin Brakefield, who's going to score really well. You're bringing in Malik Dia, John Ball. Those guys can really score inside. And I believe you just gave that guy a point guard. You gave Chris Beard a point guard, a traditional point guard who's going to pass it, who's going to run an offense around this team. And I would like to see how this works out for Ole Miss team. That kind of was a freelance offense last year. Kind of just relied on the ISO ball with Allen Flanagan, with Juju Murray, with Matthew Morrell, with Jamin Brakefield. But this is a guy in Padula who's going to stop the play, run an offense, run a couple plays, and I think Chris Beard's going to use that ability of him a lot. Also a really good defender, really shifty guy, really quick. Yeah. And don't let his size fool you. I mean, I think he's about 6'1", 6'2", not the biggest guy, but he's definitely going to show a bigger guy on the court when he's guarding you for sure.
100%.
Ole Miss is going to be expected to be top 25 next year. I believe I've seen a couple of them where they're about 20 to 25 in those preseason rankings. Really just excited to see what they're going to do. But Brachiology also has them. Joe Lunardi has them as a 7 seed already, which if you're an Ole Miss fan, you're already ahead of your rival Mississippi State, who are projected as a 9 seed next year. But you'd love to see that if you're an Ole Miss fan, because, I mean, Mississippi State, even though you beat them at home on your home floor last year, they were the team that made the tournament and you didn't. So you like to see that being ahead of them in the projections, and really just excited to see what that team's going to do next year.
Yeah, and it's such a good spot to be in, Cam. When like all the writers and the AP polls and the voters and all those types of people recognize that your team is full of talent, you have a little less to prove, versus last year where it's like you have to win a certain amount of games because of how terrible you were the year before. But they got a lot to work with coming back. The guys like Brakefield, TJ Caldwell, and then again the dominance in the portals, giving this team that boost. That recognition that I think they deserve and that they're going to prove this winter.
Absolutely. I think that's all we got for you guys today. Won't have much to recap next time we see you, but we'll keep an eye out for commitments, just what Ole Miss baseball is doing down the stretch here. Just keep an eye out for basketball, football, baseball. I mean, basketball and football, men's hoops, women's hoops. Just keep an eye out for commitments there. But I think that's all we got for you guys today. So just make sure to tune in to therebelwalk.com for all your Ole Miss sports needs.